Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of GTV. And today, dahil gustong-gusto nyo ng reaction video, gagawa ulit kami ng reaction video for Startup, the Korean drama. Okay, but we have a special guest today, EJ.
Yes.
Wait, first of all, do you want to introduce yourself again?
Hindi, okay na ako. Joke lang. Hi everyone, I'm EJ. I am co-founders with Ginger sa isang RegTech startup here locally in the Philippines called Taxumo. So if you need to file your taxes, you can consider us, taxumo.com. But yes, so we're in the startup world, in the tech startup world locally in the Philippines.
Yes.
While we're watching, we have a lot of reactions automatically. No? Yeah.
So yes, we're gonna do this reaction video, and it's medyo in Taglish because for this particular episode, we want to encourage more Filipinos to start their own startups. So speaking of startups and our special guest, I love your shirt because she comes from this entity or organization. So today, our special guest is Eunice Braga. She is the External Relations Manager of IdeaSpace. Hi, Eunice.
Hello! Hi, Ginger! Hi, EJ!
Hello, Eunice. A recording artist with a full audio studio setup.
Naka-mic talaga tayo dito.
Right, love it.
I love it. So for today's reaction video episode of Startup, we are gonna choose scenes from episodes 4 and 5, which is the Sandbox episode. Yeah, so a little, so that we can actually tell you basically later the difference between Sandbox and IdeaSpace and all of the things happening in these episodes. Okay, are you ready, Eunice? Let's watch. Game.
샌드박스 12기에 지원한 여러분들 진심으로 환영합니다. 샌드박스 대표 윤선학입니다. 샌드박스는 아시다시피 성공한 선배 창업가들이 후배들의 창업을 돕기 위해서 시작한 아시아 최대 규모의 스타트업 엑셀러레이팅 센터입니다.
So maybe for that particular scene, Eunice, like maybe you can share with us like your thoughts. What's the difference between incubators and accelerators?
Well, yung main difference, I think, based on what I've seen and what I've read, is that the accelerators really invest in the startups. And by that, I mean it's general, parang across the board, not just in the Philippines, but I think in other countries as well, that accelerators, when they're really interested in startups, they do make an investment, as in take equity or something similar. Incubators, I think, focus more on training. Accelerators also do, but I think the difference is also parang the stage where the startup gets into the incubator and accelerator. Incubators really focus more on idea stage startups.
Yes.
And accelerators talaga, they're a bit more advanced. So there's a minimum viable product or may proven track record na customers are purchasing the product or service. So it's a bit further ahead than incubators.
Okay, so medyo weird to, no? Like, because parang some of the attendees here don't have ideas yet, right? Concepts. Yes. And then she kind of called it like an accelerator program, but there's nothing there yet.
And it seems like their program is a bit of both based on parang the crowd that they draw. Kasi like you have Injay who has parang experience.
Experience. You're right.
And then there's sina Dosan and Samsung Tech where like basically very early stage. They have the idea, they have a prototype. Pero parang if you've seen the previous episodes, like they get questions on business model and how do they turn a profit. So wala silang sagot doon. So
I
in that regard.
Yeah, I think you know that's interesting. You brought up the concept of MVP and prototype and you know the whole product, because I think like for example, I think in this example in the show they had like the technology but they didn't really have the use for it yet. So I would say like product isn't really there yet, no. So I think I think that's something that they eventually created. I think later on we'll show like the results of the demo day. But that's interesting. No, I think if they want to be the largest accelerator, then they probably will be more focused, I believe. And it's not something new. This is like established already. So,
Yes.
So it's not
established na siya by the time that parang we see this show. So parang it was so interesting to me. Parang, accelerator sila pero parang like Dalmi walks in there without an idea. Essentially. We don't know how she got in.
Yes.
May plot armor siya in that regard.
That's true.
Hindi na nakapasok siya. Pero never natin nakita kung like, alin dun sa mga ideas na binabato niya kay Lola. Yung idea na pinitch niya.
Correct. Exactly.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, may application kasi. Okay, sige, let's proceed.
Let us continue.
지금 여기에 있는 400명 중 단 40명만이 대표가 될 수 있습니다. 스타트업이 주목하고 있는 50개의 단어를 제시하겠습니다.
단어? 무슨 단어?
자, 지금 문자로 가고 있죠? 30초 안에 그 단어와 관련 있는 스타트업 키워드 5개를 전송해 주시기 바랍니다.
응?
대중의 트렌드를 가장 잘 읽는 사람을 대표로 뽑겠다.
First of all, the CEO selection process. I'm not sure whether it makes sense, and maybe actually Eunice can give us more insight because she has worked with a lot of CEOs in her experience. So could you tell us, Eunice, is like trend spotting the number one CEO quality that you look for?
I don't think so. At IdeaSpace, hindi talaga. So that's why I found the selection process interesting. Kasi when they were flashing like the words and parang basically word association game.
Yes.
Gusto nila mangyari. So parang, okay, like gets ko yung point of view na you want someone who's forward thinking. Kasi if we flash it back to like episode 1, parang that's essentially why Miss Yoon wanted to invest dun sa business nung father ni Darmi tsaka ni NJ. Parang meron siyang ganung forward thinking. But I think parang based on my experience in IdeaSpace, it's a combination of things. We never say it's just like IQ and EQ. I think personally based on my limited experience in IdeaSpace, I've only been here for like over a year. I think one of the most important things has to be like adversity quotient. Kasi adversity quotient is parang your ability to bounce back from certain situations, and parang are you the type of person who remains grounded in the face of like problems and crises. Kasi as we've seen so far in the series, di naman nawawalan ng problema yung
Yes.
Especially sa love life.
That's true.
Like, ang daming problema ng startup founder. So, yung ability to like stay grounded and be able to look at the situation objectively and bounce back para if there are issues. Parang that's something that's really important. And I think we'll be able to see a bit of that later on. So gusto ko siyang
sige.
Kasi makikita natin siya later on.
Oh, sure,
cool.
sure. Sige. It just shows na parang magulo yung selection process talaga nila. Kasi like for example, if this was part of the structured process that they have, why didn't they tell people na kailangan meron silang phone? So yung mga people na walang battery, for example, kawawa naman, even if you know a lot of trends, pero no one actually mentioned na ganito pala yung selection process. And it seemed hindi nila alam because some people didn't have batteries and all. Part ba yan na parang, dapat lagi kang ready kung CEO ka?
It's the,
actually, I think that's part
filter.
of the lesson supposedly na dapat always ready ka. Kasi I think parang over these past few episodes, na-expose how unprepared the Samsung tech are. Like, they're ready in one thing. Like, they know their tech. Pero yung little things, parang dun sila nadadapa. And,
parang yun yung hinighlight, no? Okay.
How that pays off for them in the long run. Kasi hindi ko pa, full disclosure, hindi ko pa napapanood lahat ng episodes.
Yes.
Nasa 5 pa lang tayo, pa 6 pa
So
lang
baka
tayo.
may explanation later.
Baka.
But yes, no,
But that's good,
that's what
yeah.
we've seen so far.
Okay, let's proceed.
Can I just say, sana ganito ka na mag-network for startup founders?
Oo.
May time limit. Kasi yan, makahanap ka na ng teammate.
Maghanap ka ng founder.
Oo. It's never like that.
sana. 삼산텍 CEO로 날 영입해 줄래?
Okay. Ang daming nagagawa pag gwapo't maganda ka, no?
Oo.
Automatic may founders.
Naghahanap pa yung iba eh.
Oo.
Okay, so, anong...
I think maybe, Ginger, you can talk about ganyan ba talaga kadali maghanap ng co-founder?
Well, in our experience, hindi ganun kabilis, no? Kasi it's not just filling in. Well, in this scenario, probably because it's just a hackathon. Like, pero when we're talking about co-founders, iba yun sa team members. When it comes to co-founders, what we did was we really looked for the expertise that we needed in our company, and then we looked for the right people. And then, when we saw na may mga potential, yung mga people that we've seen, no, we actually invited them to really discuss with us. And it took like a few dates talaga, and a few meetings to discuss like what the company's vision is, are they on board, what can they bring into the team, what kami naman as the initial co-founders, what could we offer, and ang dami. There are a lot of discussions talaga before we sort of agreed to be co-founders of the company.
You're right. If it was a 3-day hackathon, okay lang.
Team
and
members.
that's normally what happens, I believe, in Startup Weekend. Maghahanap kayo talaga ng other people there, but not like co-founders in a business.
Yes.
Sa ano ba, in your experience, Eunice, like, are there solo founders who approach IdeaSpace as well?
Yes. This year, we had a couple of solo founders make it to parang what we call the pre-acceleration round. Because there are multiple rounds of judging as you go. And then you get to the pre-acceleration. So we give solo founders time from when they make it to like the end of the pre-acceleration to find co-founders. Kasi mahirap talaga siya mag-isa. So, which was actually interesting to me na pinakita nila yung whole parang spectrum na nandito si Dalmi, mag-isa lang siya, tapos Samsung Tech, like tatlo sila, tapos si NJ na may full team, parang kulang na lang talaga.
Yeah.
So, parang ganun yung spectrum talaga ng teams that you'll see in the startup ecosystem. And parang while this was very easy kasi parang basically approach ka lang to find or co-founders, like in the real world, hindi siya ganyan kadali.
Yes, true.
You know, and a lot of people, I think, join these events with the premise of $1 million idea. And you might have heard of this before, guys. It's cliche now, but ideas are cheap. And what that means is that the initial idea will most likely change pa yan. As you go through the business, it will morph into what it really is. As you understand the market, you will understand that we have to tweak it this way pala because the market won't buy what we created. So, you know, and that's why having co-founders, I think, is a really good idea because you're able to filter ideas through other people. And that act alone is huge because if you know how damaging to an organization groupthink is, right? Imagine if you're the only person. Groupthink is built into the only person. So you want to avoid that, you know.
Yeah, may certain level talaga of self-awareness na kailangan yung founder. Kasi the most successful ones or the successful ones are those who acknowledge that in some aspects, parang they don't know everything there is to know about things. No?
Yes.
Like, diba? Kahit na yung kanina parang, okay, ito yung trends. Like, it's not the main determinant. Okay, you're well aware of everything. But in terms of like doing the tasks or doing the responsibilities inside the organization, you know that you need others also, so that kung yun yung strength nila, you need them, no, to support or complement what you know. So,
Yeah.
ganon, may certain level of self-awareness talaga when it comes to like more mature founders. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe just to add a little bit more, I've been speaking a lot now, but just to add a little bit more, we're not saying it's impossible to start a business alone, but we think it's very, very difficult to start a novel business without, especially one without precedent, alone. Okay.
Yeah.
Like if you're just gonna start, let's say, and I'm not like demeaning or saying it's a small thing, but let's say you get a franchise of a food cart. You can actually run it by yourself because the formula is already there, diba? So you can actually start a business by yourself. But if it's something completely new, you're creating a market basically for something that is not yet there. Then you have to make sure that you have to make sure that your thinking is refined talaga. And a big chunk of it is, other people. They help you go through your thinking, and they help you go through the process of thinking, which by itself is a huge thing.
Hindi ko alam kung nakita niyo yung mga Facebook post ko ng madaling araw while watching Startup. Like sabi ko, naloloka ako kay Namdo-san as a person and as a CEO.
Nakakainis no?
So parang, like on the one hand, may empathy ako kasi like supposedly in the series, bata pa sila, diba? So,
yes.
Parang yung mistakes nila, like obviously, hina-highlight na dala ng kabataan also. But on the other side, it's like, oh my gosh, like may business plan sila kuno, pero wala silang model, wala silang way to like generate like profit consistently, ganyan. Tapos magagalit sila na
sasabihan.
Tina-turn down sila or na sinusupla sila ni
Han. Actually.
So yun. And I think also on the founder front, another thing that we've come to realize like at IdeaSpace is how important like industry or domain like experience is. So like for example, like an IdeaSpace startup that comes to mind is like Cropital, for example, like they're in the travel and tourism business, and at least one of the founders has experience in that industry. And it's not saying it's not like what EJ was saying that you can't do it. It's just that when you're creating something novel, but you really need to be prepared to come with like insights on the customer pain or the customer problem, which is like what you guys have done with Taxumo. Because if you don't feel the pain, you have to at least understand how important the pain is or how painful the problem is that you're trying to solve. Yeah. If you don't, kasi parang you're just creating the tech but without the problem, which is
true.
It's a more common issue than you would think.
Yes, and it's very interesting you brought it up, Eunice, because there is the concept of the problem space and the solution space. And as humans, we normally automatically focus on the solution space.
Yeah.
And what that means is that, we have the idea of the app. Oh, this app will, let's say, I don't know, this app will do something. But we don't check first whether it's a problem in the first place. Is there a need in the first place? Like a classic example that's always been set is the example of, and it's a bit of apocryphal but like the writing in space, diba? And the task was basically astronauts have to write in space, but so America, what they did was they created this high-tech $1 million pen. It was actually done by like someone else, a private entity. They created this space pen because if you've written diaries when you were a child and you were writing lying down, after a while wala nang ink, diba? Because it works with gravity. The ink is like flowing down.
Yeah.
But if you're in space, there is no gravity. So this inventor created a pen that was like like there was hydraulically pressured, ink was being pushed out of the tip all the time. So regardless of whether there's no gravity, it would work. It cost him like $1 million in R&D. And then it's usually compared to what the Russians did. So the Russians used a pencil. So the thing there is that well, America was so focused on the solution space, creating this high-tech solution that would fit the space age program, and Russia was focused on the problem, which was how to write. So that's something that's always there. And I think that the fact that a lot of people come in with ideas, pero they don't really know whether it's a problem or how big the problem is or what the problem really is.
Or what the problem really is.
Yes, or what you said about, the appreciation of the market. They don't really understand the market. So I think that's where a lot of startups fail, because they will like invest money in the idea and then yung pala walang bibili. Yeah, no one.
And I've heard stories. Like I remember there was a talk I attended at Philippine Startup Week last year. And then someone was talking about how, I've already poured in like over 1 million pesos into like this website. And I'm like horrified. But the problem,
Yes, that's true.
But like, what are you trying to solve? Because like, just like that 1 million can go like for so long. It can take you for so long in the business if you're bootstrapping. But if you're focusing on like developing the tech before trying to identify like what is it that you're trying to solve, and parang how big or how important that problem is, like you'll really burn through a lot of money. And sadly, people have been burned that way.
Yeah.
Yes. And just to give you some sense of scale, guys, IdeaSpace gave us 500,000. When we got into the program, that lasted us a year.
Yeah.
So 1 million can do a lot talaga, depending on how you really use the money.
삼산택 대표 서달미예요. 정사 씨 외모 말고 경력 보고 찾았고요. 대표 자리 날로 먹을 생각 1도 없고요. 전천후로 다 해달라는 뻘소리도 안 합니다. 딱 디자인만 잡아줘요. 사람들은 내 무릎이 쉽다기보다 그쪽이 대단하다고 생각할걸요? 그게 그쪽한테 더 좋은 결론 아닌가? 시간이 좀 있을 때 결정해요. 임박해서 결정하면 떨이처럼 보여.
Okay. Yan. So maybe if I could start regarding this, I think there are a lot of times when you have to focus on the result that you want to get out of every interaction you have. And it's actually, in my experience, it's never about retaining power. It's weird. But I think in Korea, it's a big thing because I think they're a very hierarchical society, very Confucian,
like,
very
CEO,
elders and everything. No? Oo nga, big
Hindi
deal.
sinasabi no, parang even in their language, like may 6 or 7 levels ba ng like
of respect, parang ganun.
Yes, this is how you talk to a person if he's like the same age or if he's like or your boss, may ganun.
Nuna.
Talaga? Grabe, I can't remember. Ang naalala ko lang po, opo.
What's the name of the guy who wrote Blink? Si Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about how I think there was a time in South Korea na ang taas nung airplane crashes sa kanila. Tapos you were saying na parang if you look at the countries kung saan mas malaki yung power distance, aka mas hierarchical, parang mas marami yung crashes doon. And actually kasama yung Philippines in that data.
Yes!
That he shared.
Is that a good thing? Yes, Pinoy pride!
Lower yung power distance. Fewer yung crashes. Kasi parang
you communicate.
Yung communication, parang when there's a problem,
you can easily say it.
Power distance. Parang pag lower yung power distance, you can easily say it na parang, there's a problem, parang we have to fix it, this is how we can fix it. Pag mataas yung power distance, parang if you figure out mo pa yung how do I say it in a polite manner para hindi ma-offend yung taong sinasabi na may problem pala.
Yes,
kaya
and,
pala.
and just to add, no, that's very true. In our startup, we push candidness. We always talk about be candid, give feedback. And we say, when someone's giving you feedback, then they want you to improve. So it's not always bad. But in reality, what happens is that people get hurt. And I think it has something to do with that power
Culture
distance
pa
thing.
rin.
So what we recently did was we actually sort of like met halfway and saw like, okay, what are the triggers for feedback that work for you? So each
Yeah.
one had like a way of giving feedback. But that's very true, no? It's work slows down, guys, when you cannot
Yes.
be candid with each other. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think that's a reality for certain cultures. I think it's starting to change in the Philippines.
Yes.
And people will think automatic mas bastos na kasi parang gano'n.
Mm.
Pero hindi, it's more of people are now really invested in things that we are doing. And I think that's what helps, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you enroll people in your vision and what you're trying to do, then they will make decisions based on that, going towards that, and they will like question things that don't align with that, no? So
Yeah. Pero yeah, ngayon ko lang na-realize, yeah, it's such a big thing pala. Like, there are a lot of episodes that looks matter. Like, hindi man looks, but how you see the situation matter in this episode. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
for example, for this particular episode, like, they were like complimenting her on her looks, which isn't really related to the job, diba, that
Yes.
they were gonna do. And also like yung lumuhod siya, diba, she knelt down, and then parang sinasabi ng girl, aren't you like scared of what people might think of you? You're the CEO. Pero diba, parang ngayon parang little by little natatanggal yung tight. I don't know na, like based on our experience, at least in our organization, we don't really not naman care, but basically we don't base decisions on that, yung hierarchy. Like, dapat si EJ kasi siya yung CEO. Hindi ganun yung, that's not how we make decisions, no? Like, everyone jumps in. There are a lot of situations now. We encounter challenges and everyone jumps in and helps each other out. Diba?
Yes. Even within like our organization, like IdeaSpace, hindi siya hierarchical. Like, I think one of the things that convinced me to join IdeaSpace was how, parang when they were interviewing me, like, Butch and then we're like, don't call us sir, don't call us ma'am. And parang my interview process was, I met with Butch and Diane, and then also, like, the rest of the team.
Oh,
nice. They had to buy in, parang not just, like, the two top leaders in the organization, but the rest of the org also had to buy in and be convinced na, like, okay siya, culture fit wise. So yun. So also that, like, same, like, no hierarchy, and then also promoting candidness, because it's very important to have a healthy relationship with feedback, not just when you're in a startup, but just in general in life.
In life, correct.
Question, Eunice, kasi alam mo, sa organization namin, we've told people, don't call us sir, don't call us ma'am, but they don't stop. I mean, ganun pa rin. They will still, ewan ko, mukha lang talaga ako matanda or whatever. Pero, like, how did you, like, how maybe does IdeaSpace do something like, may bawas ba sa sweldo kung nag-sir or ma'am ka? Ganun ba yun? like, in your experience, what's an effective way of, like, getting rid of that? Because I think titles really do matter. It's a very subconscious level, diba? So, kayo, like, do you do something differently? Kaya you can remove that from your vocabulary?
Well, I think, like, I mean, for one, Diane shares her office with a colleague of ours. So, and parang we can barge in and out of the office para if we have, like, questions or concerns. And then there's a bit of an open door policy, and which is, like, the same way. Parang, I think in the first couple of months that I was working in IdeaSpace, like, Sir Butch, it's like, don't call me sir.
So
I already came from parang the previous workplace that I came from was already pretty flat as well. Like, I don't parang it wasn't encouraged. Like, my boss was never called ma'am. Even, like, the regional bosses who were usually, like, either senior, like 20 years of experience, or parang expats, parang never called them sir. Pero so weird. Pero when I started IdeaSpace, so, like, with Butch, like, sir. It took me a while then to, like, remove that. But he just kept on reminding me that it's just Butch, it's just Diane. And I think parang after a while, para people just realized na, or I just realized na, okay, like just call them Butch, Diane, don't call them sir or
Sir.
ma'am. Parang for
Kasi
one,
correct
they
na
don't
naman ako.
like it. For two,
Oo.
parang
Paulit-ulit.
once you see like the culture that they're trying to create, na parang people feel comfortable, yun nga, giving feedback, challenging ideas, challenging ways of doing things. Parang you realize na, okay, you have to remove nga that barrier. Kasi if yung mental model pa lang nila when they start off at meetings is my opinion doesn't matter as much because my title is this, then they won't feel as encouraged to contribute, which is I think why it's good to encourage that culture like among startups but also among like larger organizations. Because if you really want to get the best ideas, then you have to create the environment to make that possible.
Nice.
Yes,
Yeah,
hence.
that's true.
Sabi nga nila,
And
no
people
one
won't
has a
feel-
monopoly on good ideas.
Yeah, people won't feel comfortable if they think na okay kasama namin si founder or si owner. Tapos syempre kasi siya yung founder, siya yung owner. Yung ideas niya dapat yun yung papakinggan natin. Pero you have something to contribute. That's why you got hired or that's why you're part of the team.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Very interesting.
Yes. Okay. Let's proceed.
Lumuhod lang yun, dami natin nasabi. Ayan, tuloy natin.
Lumuhod lang.
Also, ang hackathon, ano lang talaga, for everyone's knowledge. In fairness, true to life siya. That's like, for a weekend, 48 hours. Yung sa kanila, 48 hours. Ganyan lang talaga kaiksi.
Yes. Mabilis lang talaga.
Pero hindi ko gets after nito, bibigyan silang office, bibigyan silang funding, a little bit of funding para magawa yung work. So parang, ano? Tapos mag-iba
yung idea nila after.
Or sa bagay, it might be a model that works.
AI로 세상을 혁신하는 삼산텍 대표 서달미입니다. 이 기술로 뻗어나갈 무궁무진한 서비스들, 보안, 의료진단, 스마트 팩토리, 자율주행. 이 모든 것들을 가능하게 만들 삼산텍의 여정에 제가 함께 있다는 것이 너무나 벅찼거든요. 이 설레는 여정의 시작이 바로 이 샌드박스가 되길 기대하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Yeah. And so maybe before we get to, well, since this is the end of episode 5, maybe you can tell us more about like IdeaSpace and then let's compare it to what's happening here because this is the end of their sort of like hackathon.
Yeah. So yeah, the IdeaSpace process is you fill out an application form. So actually it's very similar to parang the sandbox process. We get a bit of info about you, your background. I think we also ask questions about parang not just the business but also on the personal side of things. We also want to get to know this. Then there are 3 rounds of judging. So I think at this point, sila nasa first round pa lang sila with this hackathon. And then the top 30 teams, they go into what we call pre-acceleration phase or pre-acceleration program. So there's a multiple day boot camp. And then while you go through the pre-acceleration phase, you have access to mentors. So IdeaSpace alumni like you guys get to participate in that. And the founders get a taste of what it's like to be mentored and to get guidance. And then there's also a bit of funding. It's really more for the business operations. And then they also set goals for the pre-acceleration process for that 6 weeks. And then we look at the delta or basically the change throughout those 6 weeks. What did you achieve? What were the obstacles that you overcame? Ano yung naging journey nyo throughout the 6 weeks? And then from there, we go to like the top 20 teams who go through the 4-month acceleration process where it's really a bit more intense. The reporting is more frequent. Your suite of mentors are also bigger and it really covers everything from operations to business models to the tech to marketing, like the whole shebang talaga, to research even. So that goes on for 4 months. And then we do a demo day, which is basically the public outing for the startups under the program, and then after that, secured an investment from IdeaSpace. So yun. That's basically the entire process.
Okay, so parang this is like the first part pa lang, no? So maybe, no, I'm curious to know, and I think yung viewers natin will be curious to know, like, for a presentation like this, or the first part of like the idea space process, what do you actually look at?
I think we look at three things. It's IQ, EQ, and the adversity quotient. We don't really have a preference in terms of like the schools that you finished, where you work, or any other experiences that you might have had in your life. Parang even in terms of industries or the ideas, parang it's not like the sole basis on which we judge founders on. Diane always likes to say that one of the first details that she looks at when it comes to evaluating founders is self-awareness, which we've touched on a bit before. She likes to say that if you're not a self-aware founder, you won't be able to do a financial plan or a business plan and do it well or execute well on the idea that you have. And definitely one of the key things that we look into. I also mentioned another detail or trait earlier, which is industry or domain experience or expertise. It's really important to have a certain level of knowledge and understanding of the industry you're trying to definitely ways from the application form to the judging process, the judging rounds that we try to figure that out. Then another thing that we also evaluate for is like a sense of like gratitude and being a good example. Parang, are you going to be a positive contributor to the community, not just to the idea space community, but to the Philippine startup ecosystem? Or are you going to be the kind of person who just like takes and then goes ahead, makes her business big, and then never gives back?
Interesting.
So, ilang startups yung pumapasok, Eunice, dun sa initial parang bootcamp phase?
Yung initial bootcamp, we think about the top 30 teams.
Top 30.
And then for the longer 4-month acceleration phase, it's 20 or fewer teams. Through the 8 years that IdeaSpace has been parang existing, the role has been shifting. Kasi I think early on, in my first few encounters with IdeaSpace, were parang seeing them at hackathons, seeing them at all of these startup events. So when I joined IdeaSpace, we weren't doing hackathons na. Parang there's many organizations in the Philippines that have taken that on. And I think that's same for incubation as well. There are a lot of incubators that people can go to. Some of them even have their own specializations when it comes to industry. And the networks are also different. What you can get is also different. So it's definitely a more diverse ecosystem than when we started. So I think that's also why we're in this point where we're also as an organization evolving our own offerings in parang evolving like what we do for startups and the local startup ecosystem. So,
Nice. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned demo day, no? Like when you were going telling us about the process. And I know like demo day for Idea Space is coming up. Baka you wanna share with them like what demo day is and what can they expect? What can our viewers expect?
Yes. So our demo day is happening on December 11th. So that's actually pretty close. It's only a couple of days away bilang malapit na ang December. So that's basically, as I mentioned, the public outing for the startups who've been through the 4-month acceleration program. So before this, you might have seen them or you might have been a customer even, but it's really, this is their intro to the world, so to speak. So we have about 12 startups, different industries from agri to education, a bit of media, even travel and tourism. So it's basically featuring them, giving them the platform to share not just what they've been working on, but also their journey as startup founders who have gone through this program. So yun. So that's one of our biggest events for the year because it's basically bringing together people from the ecosystem system, from business, from government, even the academe. So it's really a huge public event for IdeaSpace. And I think if we can find a way to share the link where people can register, so they can see
Mm.
what it's like, what that live demo day experience is like. We'll find a way
Yes.
to make sure that you and your viewers can get that link so they can register for it.
Yes. Does it have a limit? Like, can anyone join? May limit ba in the
I
number of
think
attendees?
I think the platform that we're housing, their most comfortable limit is like at 5K.
Okay, a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And we also have to account for like internet. So hopefully we can accommodate a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if not naman, if not within the platform, I think we're streaming this on Facebook as
Facebook.
well. So people
Oh, okay, that's
might be
good.
able to catch it. And even after, we'll try to find a way to make the whole event available after it happens, just so people can see what it's
Yes.
like, what the pitches are like. Because like in this episode, we seen like multiple founders pitch, and iba-iba yung atake nila, and iba-iba yung products na they're talking about. So that would be a good experience, I guess, as well for the viewers.
Yeah, super exciting, no? Especially for the Philippine startup scene or community dito, no? So I know that a lot of people now, even if they're not like startup founders or aspiring startup founders, nung napanood nila yung startup, they are sort of like parang thinking of starting their own business and getting into this industry. So this demo day of IdeaSpace is actually a good experience for you to see also if you're planning to join this community. Kasi you'll see a lot of really great ideas from local or Philippine startups, no? And plus, kami yung host nun.
Yes.
Yun lang. Kami
Yun
yung host.
lang.
Yun lang.
So,
Yes.
ewan ko lang kung gusto nyo manood. Ayan. So, yeah, anything to add for episodes 4 and 5? Like, EJ, baka may something to add ka pa? No more na.
No more na.
Okay. How about you, Eunice? Anything else that you want to add? Okay.
I think the way lang na Dalmi pitched, I think that's a good idea of like how to frame your pitches na parang from the get-go, like this is the problem, like this is why we're needed. I think that's that was more of their edge. And I think it also proves why tama si Jipyong na hindi si Dosan yung CTO kasi kailangan nila ng person.
Feel ko yung frustration ni Eunice.
Like do parang those things for them. Oh.
So entities like IdeaSpace, accelerators, incubators, they actually help you not make those mistakes, or at least make those mistakes more quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a benefit of joining programs, no? Especially IdeaSpace. IdeaSpace was instrumental in our development as a startup, of Taxumo, because like they hammered into our heads the importance of validating the market need, no? And that was vital because that essentially changed the whole solution for us, no? When we came into IdeaSpace, the solution was one thing, and then it shifted to something entirely different at the end.
Yeah.
And to what it is now, actually.
Yes.
And it was the need that allowed us to identify that shift.
So yeah, I want to say thanks lang talaga to IdeaSpace. And that was like how many years ago? Like 2016. So 4 years ago.
30 years ago, something like that. Ang dami lang nangyari, guys.
Yung startup years.
4 years ba lang yun?
Yeah. So go ahead. Yes, Eunice, you were saying.
Yeah, so I was gonna say niya, yung sinasabi ni Miss Yoon, basically si Miss Yoon ay si Dayan for IdeaSpace. Yung sinasabi nila na like it's an opportunity to give like fledgling entrepreneurs a chance. Yung sinasabi ng tatay ni Dalmi na parang sana sa sand ako nadapa and not sa concrete. Parang I think that's essentially like the opportunity that like incubators and accelerators give to startup founders na you can experiment, you can try, you can fail, and parang since you have mentors, since you have a support system, parang you do that with parang not as I guess big of us not as big of a consequence, not as fatal of a consequence as you would if you were doing it alone. And parang maybe it also prevents you from making mistakes na are not as helpful or productive to you, the founder, and the business. Parang there are some that are avoidable, and you can make mistakes that are, I guess, more helpful to you.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, even if you just get
Ayun.
into the boot camp, no, Eunice, parang grabe, there are a lot of things that you're gonna learn really. And I think they're all winners, no, just by like getting into the program. I think yeah, it's an amazing achievement because that starts there. Yeah? That starts your process of learning and basically iterating your solutions later on. So yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you so much, Eunice, for joining
Yes.
us and giving your inputs and reacting with us today. So if you like this video, kindly click on like, share, subscribe.
Thank you.
Yes, and click on that notification bell for more videos like this. Again, this is Ginger and
Yes.
EJ and
Eunice.
Eunice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.